Welcome to New Atlas Live. I'm Brian Berletic. Angelo Giuliano is traveling. We have a special guest today, Li Jingjing. She is a Chinese journalist for CGTN. And I wanted to have her on to talk about what it's like to be a Chinese journalist and what it's like to be born, raised in China, and all of the changes taking place there. So welcome, Li Jingjing. Can you just maybe, let's start by you introducing yourself and just giving a little bit of a background about where you came from, why you got into journalism. I'm also very interested to hear about what city you were born in or what town, and how it has changed over the years.
Cool. So hello, everybody. Greetings to all the viewers to the New Atlas. I'm very happy to come on to your show, Brian, because you come to my show many times to discuss a lot of topics. So to those who don't know about me, my name is Li Jingjing. I'm a Chinese born and raised in China. I've been working as a journalist in China for more than 10 years now. So you asked me why I interested in journalism. How come I decided to be a journalist? It's interesting because I think being a reporter, being a journalist is kind of like a dream of mine since childhood. I remember in 5th grade in elementary school, during those times, teachers will ask you, what do you want to be in the future? Astronauts, scientists, or policemen? And my answer back then was already a journalist. So I've been following this path my entire school years, like in my entire life. I got my degrees in journalism both in China and in UK. I got my bachelor degree in China's universities and my master's degree in UK universities, all journalism and media related. Also joined many exchange programs, so got the chances to study a short while in Geneva, participating in some cultural exchange programs in Germany as well. So, in the past few years, I have the opportunity to live and study and travel across different countries and different cultures to really understand different perspectives, different cultures. So, I think studied journalism both in China and in the West, give me the opportunity to understand the different different models of journalism, different ways of working, how it functions, and also to look things from different perspectives. I know how many people in China see the West, and also I understand how the West view China. So I think with this knowledge, it's important to be the bridge, to connect different people. Always interested in telling the stories of people. So that's what I've been doing. So in the past 10 years, working as a journalist, I covered many subjects. From the beginning, I was covering culture-related subjects. All the fun stuff, people's stories, even movies, and then gradually moved towards politics. But I think there are two things. There were two turning points in my journey that really made me that is so outspoken at the social networks, outspoken debunking the lies that the Western media has been spewing. First is the riots in Hong Kong in 2019. I think that was a moment that a lot of people in China, either Chinese, either foreigners in China, were so awakened because they saw the media, major Western media they trusted for a long time, just outright lying. I talked to many friends from Hong Kong. They were born and raised in Hong Kong, and they told me the same thing. They were seeing one thing in their real life, the riots, how it's like in their real life, just outside of their apartment, and then see completely different story being presented on media like CNN, those major Western media. So it was a wake-up moment for a lot of Chinese people, to realize what the Western media is really doing. And so I it gave me enough anger to like have like some people need to stand up to these lies. We cannot tolerate this to continue. And then it was the pandemic, the COVID-19 outbreak in Wuhan broke out in early 2020. So I was among the first group of reporters who fly to Wuhan to do the reporting. I stayed during the entire lockdown, the first large-scale lockdown in such a big city in the entire world. And back then, it was a dangerous timing, dangerous situation because no one knows anything about COVID-19 yet. It was very deadly, and it was under a lockdown. There were very limited access to everything. So, and it was so difficult. And I saw the struggles of the people, but also how strong they are to unite and trying to defeat this challenge together. And then you saw completely different, horrendous reports on Western media and also on social media. So many misinformation, so many lies, and very racist comments. So it
Yeah,
gives
not to interrupt you, but I'm showing people on the screen right now. This is just somebody who drove through Wuhan. I just want people to see what Wuhan actually looks like versus the image that's been built up into their head by these toxic lies that you're talking about. So I'm just going to let that play while you continue talking about this process of awakening and realizing what the West was doing.
Yeah. So this is Wuhan, right? So
yes, this is Wuhan.
Wuhan is such a beautiful city, and it has a large scale city as well. But because of, and it went through so much in history as well, because it was a major city during in many historical events in China. But this city got so many slanders, and people of Wuhan got slanders, being blamed for the virus. And even though they were suffering the most, because I went to hospitals and I talked to many survivors of COVID-19 and also the family members of the victims who passed away to the COVID-19. They were so united, and they were so, I really admire them because they're very courageous. And many people told me, you know what, how to say, we Wuhaners, we take the first shock of COVID-19 because that was the strongest COVID-19. It was very deadly, not like the current variant that we are facing now. Back then, when people got it, they could possibly die very soon, but they were helping each other. So, and that I saw that all those comments on social networks really made me so outrageous. So I was like, okay, someone from China who is on the ground knows what's happening, need to stand up and to speak the truth. So I think ever since then, I became very, very active on social networks, trying to spread the real messages, not the Western media's twisted messages. So I think those are the two turning points that made me doing what I'm doing now, debunking the Western lies, calling them out, and trying to show people the other side of the story. The other side, I mean, the side that the Western media never told you about, never showed you about, and even twisted. Because voices like me, like mine, like ordinary Chinese, who the image, the story, and the opinions we have are very inconvenient for those media or governments who try to paint the China evil image. So voices like ours never get interviewed by the major Western media. And only dissidents or the Western NGOs paid dissidents or so-called activists got the front page headline, no matter how ridiculous the stories are. So I think it's important to let people know our story. So that's what I'm doing. So I realize I start to ramble a lot. So
No. But that's great. And I think that's what motivates a lot of people to speak up, even though it's uncomfortable. You come under a lot of attack. and it's not pleasant to deal with people who are lying. And it's so outrageous because, like you said, in Hong Kong, people can see with their eyes what is happening versus
Mhm.
what CNN and the BBC are saying. You look into it, you research, you see the US money flowing into the opposition groups. You can see how blatant the interference is and how illegal it is under international law. And you understand how the US makes up stories about how China, interferes in the US with no
Yeah.
evidence at all. And then the way they're actually doing it, it makes you angry. And I think doing journalism to wake people up, I think that is a very constructive way to go about dealing with this anger, because it is outrageous. So you say for the last 10 years you have been
Mhm.
doing journalism.
Yeah.
When I ask you, how has China changed since you were a kid growing up? It's not to mean that you're when usually in the West you ask someone this question, it's like, oh, you're so old, so how have you seen things over your whole life? Things in China change so quickly. Just for an
So much.
example,
Yeah.
yeah, I
Yeah.
was there.
So
And no,
yeah.
go ahead. Where were you? I'm curious. Where were you born? What was it like then, and what is it like now?
Okay. So now I'm in my 30s, and so in the 30 years of my life, I think I witnessed dramatic changes in my own country. I remember during my college years in Henan province. Um, I back then I lived in a city called Zhengzhou, and my university is in another city. So sometimes I return to my hometown to my family, maybe just 1 or 2 months every 1 or 2 months. I noticed that sometimes I returned to my home 2 months later. I couldn't recognize the road in front of my our buildings because it got reconstructed so fast. So that's just one manner changes. So actually, my family, I was from very northern city, Heilongjiang, northeast city of China, and my family moved to different provinces the entire year when I grew up. And so I lived in different provinces, and now I live in Beijing. So my family is just very ordinary Chinese family. My grandparents were farmers, so my parents just come from farmer family. Um, so uh, it is because of the benefits of such a developing fast development, and also give everybody opportunity to get better education. So an ordinary family, someone like me from such an ordinary family, have the opportunity to study abroad, to do journalism job, and not that something fancy to do. It's just it was unimaginable to my parents' generation or even to my grandparents' generations. So like none of my family speak any English word, but now I'm doing like this, like what, presenting stories, doing news to English speakers. It was unimaginable to my parents' generations. So that's why that happened, because of the equal opportunities that society gave us. We can change our fate through educations. So I really appreciate the what education and what the also the different improvements in the society benefits us. But I think this is my story. Like my story is not that impressive, because like some many people have much more impressive story than mine. For example, the astronaut who is in China's space station right now, there are three of them. One of them is just civilian, because previously astronauts were in the army, but this
Yes.
time this guy who is just only 2 years older than me, and he's in the first civilian astronaut, and he comes from a very poor village in Yunnan province. His village was lifted out of extreme poverty in 2020, May 2020. He comes from a very, very ordinary family, and because he was a good student, he started hard enough, and so he got into the college in Beijing, and he's now the leading expert in his field in science. And because he's an expert in his field, and he also has extraordinary like health, he can pass the physics examination to be an astronaut. So he has both the intelligence and the physical strength to be the first civilian astronaut to be in China's space station. So there are so many people like him totally change their fate and doing some impressive job that no one else could do because of, I think, the education system, the society gave them everybody a chance. You don't have to come from elite family. You don't have to come from a rich family to be, say, the president of the United States, to be the expert. So this is very important. And also, I think doing the work as a journalist in China made me knowing my country, know my culture even deeper. So we have a saying among those Chinese people who studied or worked abroad. The more you go abroad, the more you love your country. This is the
Yeah.
saying we believe. So before you go out, you probably mesmerized by the fictions, either movies or TVs taught you to believe in. But when you actually go to different countries to see what is happening there, doesn't mean that you have to hate that country. Doesn't mean you have to come back to return to your own country. But you know the so-called American dream or whatever dream it is just someone painted that to you. So with those people who actually spend a lot of time abroad, love their country even more. And I returned to China working as a journalist, and during the past 10 years, I had the privilege to travel different provinces, each corner of China, especially the remote villages of China. I traveled across Tibet, I traveled across Xinjiang, Yunnan, Inner Mongolia, all those regions, to really understand what's happening there, how policies like poverty alleviation policies carried out in the local level. So going to the villages made you realize how to say, because I think a lot of young people like us living in the big city, we were very detached from the roots, grassroots people. We were trapped in our own bubbles because we live in big cities. The big cities like Shanghai or Beijing are so well developed. So we thought the whole China is like this. But when we go to different provinces, and when I go to different provinces to go to different villages, you saw these struggles that different people, different groups of people are facing. And then I had another level, deeper level of appreciation to the government's policies, especially the poverty alleviation projects. I think most people outside of China have no idea how difficult it is to do the poverty alleviation. It is so difficult. China is so vast. We have 9.6 million square kilometers, the whole size of our country, and it spans across such a large area. You can say we are rich in natural resources, but also we face dramatic challenges geologically on many levels. How to govern 1.4 billion people? How to make 1.4 billion people's life better? That's a huge challenge for any politician, for any country. But somehow China did it. And so I went to different villages to see it. And when you go to these regions, you realize each province of China is poor due to a different reason. Some provinces people in some provinces are trapped in mountains. For example, Yunnan. Yunnan has everything. It has rainforest. It has dozens of ethnic minorities. It has so rich in plants, in fruits, in vegetables, but people could not get out because the geological regions, the mountains are so deep. But that's there. They're reaching natural resources. But in Gansu, northwest China, they are poor because they had nothing. They don't even have enough water because that region is full of Gobi Desert. Uh, Drinking water is one major problem that people used to suffer. Gansu, Ningxia, several provinces, they are facing the same problems. And how to solve those problems? Xinjiang, it has everything, has natural resources, has everything, but it's also a landlocked region before. Now it's not landlocked. It's how to bring those, how can help people get out. That's one major problem. I remember one Uyghur idol in one of the villages, Hami, that Uyghur old grandpa was so happy. He actually met Chairman Mao because he was so happy that after the founding of China, everyone's life was so dramatically changed. So he wants to bring his own grown sweet melon to Chairman Mao, all the way from Hami to Beijing. He rode a donkey all the way to bring the water sweet melon to Beijing. And like in Tibet, it's a different situation because it's such a high altitude. Even just living, surviving on that level is already difficult. People don't have roads before, don't have railways. How to solve that problem? And Guangzhou, Zhejiang may be rich because they are coastal regions. They are reaching a lot of resources, but their economy is great. But to maintain that economy, they need a lot of natural resources like coal, those to have enough energy, fuel to make the economy sustain. So how to solve that problem? So after you travel to different regions, you realize poor regions is poor. Each province is poor due to a very unique reasons, and each province is facing different challenges. So how to coordinate this? How to coordinate this effort? How to improve? How to solve everybody's problem? How to make everybody have a better life? This is such a huge challenges. So when I actually went to those regions, I had a much deeper understanding about poverty alleviation. I had a much more respect to China's policies, and because I realized how difficult it is and how much effort you have to spend from top to bottom level, not just central government. It has to be a coordinated effort from everybody to do this. So where was I don't like such a long story.
No, but this is, I mean, you've covered it very well. You covered all of these points about what's going on in China that we don't really hear about in the West, because the West just acts as if it's just a horrible place because they're not Western. They don't want to do things our way, and it's horrible, and nothing's going to get fixed, and they're just covering it up with propaganda. But what I was going to say was, I was in China in 2007. I went from Shanghai to Kunming, and I was shocked by how modern everything was. I was already kind of waking up at that point, and I realized I was being lied to by the Western media. But seeing is believing, and that was before the high-speed rail was. There was no high-speed rail. They had the signs coming soon in the train station, but there was no high-speed rail yet. So from 2007 to today, China now has the largest high-speed rail network on Earth. And you were talking about the number of people in China. I just want people to get a grasp of how big this number is. It's 1.4 billion people. That's the entire population of the United States, plus 1.1 billion extra people. I just try to wrap your mind around how many people that is. And as you were saying, how difficult it is to govern and administrate that and solve everyone's problems across such a geographically diverse region. So again, if people go online, I just real quick, just go to these channels and just type in a city and type in drive or walk, and just look. This is Beijing here, which because you were saying you're based in Beijing.
Yeah.
Have Shanghai, and just look at the variety across China. A lot of people mistakenly believe that China is just one ethnic group running everything, and that's also not true. There's so much variety. To a Western eye, superficially, it might look the same because people in the West aren't told otherwise. But actually, there is a huge amount of variety in terms of culture, language. So I think you did a really good job explaining all that. How about these policies that are transforming China? Because something else I just wanted to say real quick. I've gone through Laos many times. I've been to Vientiane many times over the years, and that country has been transformed because of China. Going in there, you were saying about Yunnan with the mountains. Laos is also just covered in mountains. They were landlocked. They could not travel even in their own country. They had these winding mountain roads. And when I went through Laos to get to Thailand, I had to go on a bus for 3 days through these winding mountains, extremely dangerous. China came in, they built a highway to cut it down to 24 hours. And now there's the high-speed rail running, which cuts it down to, I think it's like 10 hours to go to Vientiane to Kunming. So maybe talk about, because these are the policies, these are tangible things that the Chinese government does. They build physical infrastructure, they come up with economic programs that tangibly change people's lives. So maybe go get into some of these policies that you've witnessed traveling around China.
Since you mentioned Laos, I think that reminds me of a recent report about rioters, which is outrageous. It's very racist, I think, as well, because the series called The Bad Land. What are they talking about? The whole report is about this starts with the railway connecting China and Laos, like you just mentioned. They are attacking this railway because so basically the whole point in the article is trying to say China with this Belt and Road Initiative, they bring railways and highways to countries like Laos. They are bringing virus to these landlocked countries. I was like, how? That's a very interesting angle to attack infrastructure like railways. So you think railways are the reason that to bring viruses to a landlocked region, and they attack all these infrastructures that China brought to this landlocked region, less developed regions, and they don't propose alternative choices. Okay, so if you hate China's option so much, what's your option? Laos has been landlocked for hundreds of years. What have you done? What have you developed Western countries done to these developing nations? You've done nothing. And China finally bring the first ever high-speed rail to this country, and you say, oh, you're unleashing all these viruses to these developing nations. I mean, this you see it as a positive thing, and that's what the Western media say about this. Like, what are you trying to say? You're saying people in Laos don't deserve a high-speed railway? So it's
that is basically what they're saying. They should just stay landlocked and poor and be happy. And I remember before the transformation, and it's, again, you have to see it to believe it. I saw it with my own eyes, the transformation in Laos. And before this all began, there were dirt roads in the capital city. It's supposed to be the center of the country, but it looked like a dusty town. And there were these Western NGOs with their SUVs going through the streets, hanging up banners telling people there, don't use electricity, because if you use a lot of electricity, then you're going to need to build dams. And we're not going to help you build a dam. We don't even know how to. You're going to go to China, obviously, to go build a dam. We don't want that. So just don't use electricity. This is what they were telling people there. And they flat out rejected it. You said that the West didn't do anything for Laos. That's true. But actually, they did worse than nothing, because during the Vietnam War, they dropped more bombs and landmines on Laos than there were actually people living there. And there are still, to this day, more unexploded ordnance in Laos than there are human beings living there. I think there's like 3 or 4 munitions for every man, woman, and child living in Laos. And the U.S. has a token program where they're demining this. It'll take 1,000 years for them to finish. It was China, when they were building the high-speed rail, that went in there and cleared they had to clear the area of U.S. munitions before they built that. So these are the stories that we will not hear in the West. These are the kind of stories that you're helping tell. And I'm also trying to help tell, because it's outrageous when they're going to spread bat viruses because they're going through the jungle with the high-speed rail. I mean, like, what is the alternative? Do they hear themselves how that sounds? But there's people in the West that think that that's totally reasonable. So there's a lot of work that still needs to be done. I have some. Go ahead.
Because I haven't answered your question yet. Because you named some examples of improvement in China. There's so many that from my personal life, many people's like our generation's life. But since I traveled to Tibet, Xinjiang a lot, I can. How about I share with you the story of improvement in Tibet, the area we call Xizang. Xizang is its Chinese name. So I can give you some numbers just to see the dramatic changes in the past 70 years in Tibet. So first, the number is the regional GDP in Tibet. In 1951, the regional GDP in Tibet is 129 million yuan. But by 2022, the number is, so many zeros. This is 213 trillion yuan. So in the past 70 years, the regional GDP got increased by 347 times. That's the GDP. And the regional GDP per capita, in 1951, it was 114 yuan, very little. 1951, 114 yuan. The number by 2022 is 58,438 yuan, increased by 110 times. So that's the income for most people. Average life expectancy. How to pronounce that word? Expectancy,
yeah, that's a tough
expectancy.
One. So just had to think about it for
Sorry, my second language.
Yes.
Don't expectancy.
Don't forget, Li Jingjing is speaking English as a second language, and again, a lot of Westerners, especially in America, we don't speak a second language. There's no, I mean, even me being in Thailand for so long, I can just barely get through an interview in Thai. So I don't know how you do it, but I'm very impressed. So please don't be self-conscious about that. You're doing a great job.
Thank you. But I also want to mention that there are so many young people from China are very multilingual. I've met so many talented young Chinese younger than me. They not only fluent in English, perfect accent, they are able to speak different languages, Spanish, Arabic. I remember I talked to my friend who's Iraqi. He recently visited China, and he said, I met so many Arabic-speaking Chinese students. Their Arabic is so good. So blows his mind. And also the students are also learning different African languages because they want to go to Africa someday. So, I mean, the young generations of Chinese are very talented, and they will be, they have a great future. When I see them and what they are able to do, I have so much hope for the future of my country. I see the talents and their ambitions. Okay, so back to the Tibet story. So the average life expectancy of people in Tibet in 1951, it was 35 years old. 35 years old. Wow. Average life expectancy in 1951.
Already.
Yeah, I'd be dead as well. I'm 35. But by 2022, life expectancy is 72. 72. That's the normal life expectancy we see now. So that's just changed in the past 70 years. Illiteracy rate, also very important to point out, because in 1951, the illiteracy rate in Tibet is 95%. 95%. That means most people don't know how to read and write. Most people don't go to school in 1951. Only 2% of children go to school in 1951. It also got changed. Now, almost no illiteracy rate. Everybody can read and write, except maybe before very few old people of older generations. But most people can read and write now, and everybody, all the kids, go to school without exceptions. And in China, we have this 9 years compulsory education. That means like from elementary school, middle school, high school, you have to go to school and it's required. But in Tibet and also in Xinjiang, government provide 15 years of free educations. 15 years, that's more than all the other provinces. From kindergarten all the way to high school, all the kids are required to go to school to get education, all the fees paid by government, just to give the kids in those regions opportunities to study, to get education, to change their life. I mean, those numbers tells a lot of the improvements. This is just one region. This region, Western media, Western countries love so much, right? They always talk about Tibet. And some like Western politicians, media activists sponsored by NGOs based in Washington, D.C., they keep spreading the lies that people cannot, there are people, they are oppressed, they cannot speak their language, their life is horrible, they had all these lies. But in reality, people's life got so much better. So now if you go to that regions, everybody is very happy and they're very grateful to the Chinese government because they saw the changes in their life. So I traveled to Tibet many times, but I remember in 2020, the end of 2020, I went to remote regions and I interviewed many nomads because Tibet is very large and there are some regions that you drive maybe 8 hours, 10 hours, you won't see any villages, any human. It's just nonstop mountain and roads. And there are many nomads. Sometimes you will, while you're driving, you will see maybe one family or 3 or 4 families leaving this region. And because nomads changing grassland, so they have maybe several places in different grassland. So in this place, it's just this one family. And then you drive 3 hours, another 3 hours, you will see 3 family leaving that region. Even though they're so separated, so remote, just random family, vast land, even in those regions, those houses has electricity and running water because the government made sure every family, the state grade company, bring the wire to those houses so they have electricity. If there are like 2 or 3 families living in that grassland, the government will dig a well in their backyard to make sure they don't have to walk 50 kilograms to get a basket of water. They can just get some water in their backyard. So that's the changes of the life of people in the old times. Oh, and also the railways, the highways in Tibet is also amazing because before 1951 there were no railways in Tibet at all. Barely any roads. It's just probably some roads that yaks and people keep walking on. So there's some roads, but now there were so many different railways and highways. I was always amazed by how good the roads is and how good the railway is in Tibet, because you have to remember, building anything in Tibet is extremely difficult. First, it's high altitude. The average height of Tibet is 4,000 meters above sea level. But some areas, the Mount Chomolungma, Western people call it Mount Everest, but local Tibetan people call it Mount Chomolungma, the world's highest mountains, 8,848 meters. So I mean, the average the height of the entire plateau it varies, and you have to build railways, highways in different high altitude is extremely difficult. Second, um, because that region is low in oxygen. In summer, it's probably 60% oxygen, and in winter, sometimes it could be 40% oxygen. So people like us who live in lower land, you cannot do any heavy labor up there. Even walking, slow walking will make you exhausted there. And imagine building a railway, how much work you had to do. And most of the earth in Tibet is frozen earth because it's so cold, extremely cold in that region. In wintertime, all the earth is frozen. In summer, because of the sun, the frozen earth will melt, so it became very soft. So that poses great challenges for construction. How can you build railways and the highways in such a like frozen earth who keep changing? But still, with all these challenges, people build multiple railways, make sure every provinces, every regions, every cities in Tibet is connected with roads and expressways. So when I hear some Western reporters when they travel to Tibet and read stories about, oh, this region is so oppressed, people don't have the freedom to do this, do that. I mean, what are you saying? The reason that you can go to that region, the very road you are driving on, is built by this government. You are saying oppressing the people there. The reason that you can eat vegetables and fruits is because of the roads so people can send different materials to that region, because fruits, vegetables, fresh vegetables don't grow on that high altitude. And how can you eat that thing? People from the other parts of China bring all those resources to that region to make sure people can access everything. And now with all these materials made available by the government, you're complaining about. Well, I mean, the whole thing is hilarious to me.
It's so ridiculous. They tell these lies, and they put Western people in such a ridiculous mindset that they're blind to any actual facts. So there are documentaries about how China built that railway connecting all of the cities in Tibet. And it is an engineering marvel, a modern marvel of engineering. All of these numbers that you're talking about, all of these statistics that are improving over the last 70 years, that is because there are people there building hospitals, schools, roads, water, electricity, all of the things that you're talking about. And this is what a country is supposed to do for its people. And especially in the United States, the short amount of time, relatively short amount of time that I spent there growing up, I watched everything crumbling. And it has just gotten worse since then. So a lot of Western people hear about this, it's just so abstract to them because they cannot imagine a government actually investing that much into their own country, which I mean, it should be absurd that a government is not investing in its own people. So that is what I've seen. That is what I've seen. And that is what I've seen, the impact of China outside of China. Here in Southeast Asia, I've seen the positive impact versus the toxic interference of the West, who is always taking and destroying. They're never building. It's China that's building. And there was something that I wanted to ask you. Well, yes, about the West saying that Tibet or Xinjiang, they're oppressed. If Westerners just look up online the Chinese money, just the design of the bills, they have all of these minority languages on the money itself, which, I mean, how can you say that about the United States? They have minority languages they have Latin and English. They don't have any minority languages on U.S. money. China has that. The signs in those regions have the local language written there.
And it's mandatory. It's required by law in those minority autonomous regions. On public signs, you have to use at least two languages. One, the Mandarin, the national language, and also the next language, like the the next majority of ethnic groups living in that region. For example, in Xinjiang, it's mandatory to use Mandarin and Uyghur language on public signs and all that. But let me remind you, there are like 20 or 30 ethnic groups living in Xinjiang. I mean, Kazakh, Uzbek, Russian, Hui, different ethnic groups. They all of them speak their own languages.
Yes.
So, yeah. Okay, back to you.
Well, what the West is calling oppression is not being allowed to take money from the U.S. and pursue separatism. That's basically when you really look at the details of these crises that the U.S. itself has created and is in the middle of. The problems in Tibet go all the way back to the end of World War II. The CIA, on the State Department's website, they have old documents where they talk about giving weapons to these separatists to kill people in China and carve off territory. And so that's what they're talking about. They're saying that's not tolerated, but that's not tolerated anywhere. It wouldn't be tolerated back in the United States, and China shouldn't tolerate it either. So again, it's this battle of narratives, and it's a battle to show the truth versus these toxic lies that the West tells its own people who are deliberately indoctrinated to be biased, maybe a little racist to start with. It's a downhill battle for them. It's an uphill battle, I think, for Chinese media. So maybe you've been in Chinese media for 10 years. What are some of the hardest? I mean, is that the hardest part about it? Reaching out to people, trying to get through to people in the West who have been sold these narratives. I mean, what is the hardest part of the job for you?
There are many challenges. Hard, like to be a multimedia journalist, you have to do many things at the same time. I think you understand that as well. Doing research, doing video, that's the common challenges journalists from all around the world are facing. But I think one of the reasons that drove me to do what I'm doing now is I noticed so many voices, so many stories are neglected by Western media. Like I said earlier, voices like mine. There are many people like me who share the same opinions, but we will never be shown by the Western media. So how to get people to see the other side of the story? Why allowing those parachute correspondent from this Western mainstream media telling our stories on our behalf and even talking over us? Because, for example, I mean, I'm a Chinese, I'm a journalist. I've been sharing the stories that are inconvenient for the West. So I got shadow banned. I was being accused as a propagandist, and several media like New York Times, Associated Press, the Daily Beast all wrote hit pieces about me. What they are trying to do is to get my platform either to get a label or get to be shut down. This is interesting. Yes. And I mean, I find interest because when they wrote the stories about me, I don't have that much followers yet. I'm just someone, a journalist who is very active on social networks. And they wrote, especially all social press wrote such a long piece about me. I don't think this is hilarious. What they are saying is they try to convince people what I'm saying is not my view. They are trying to say, people give me scripts to say what I want to say. Even though on my platforms, I go to these regions, I show them the whole video, the footage. I just present the Western audiences, hey, this is my story, what I saw, or my interactions with local people. I present that to you because Western media don't do that. And you decide whether you believe this. And then they got so scared trying to put all these labels on me. either discredit my report or trying to say I'm a propagandist. So like there are two kinds of Chinese to them. Either you are freedom lover, dissidents who they will choose you to be on the front page on the headlines of their report, or the other group of Chinese like us who totally disagree with their opinion and who debunk their lies, and we will got the label as China's propagandist. And it's not just happened to Chinese. I think the same to all these expats who are calling them out, who are calling Western media out, who are pointing out the loopholes, the faults in their reports, and they will get the same label. Yes. So, I mean, so like we are either freedom lover or we're just brainwashed by China's government in their depiction. So, I mean, I think this is hilarious and also racist because they don't think we have our own opinion, we can think, and our opinion, we don't like their system. I also want to point out, I think the West's biggest manipulation is to teach us, is teaching us that our system is bad. The West's biggest manipulation is teaching us being patriotic is bad. Why? They try to teach us only the Western style, the only Western democracy, even though their democracy, I don't think they represent the true version of a democracy, but they keep teaching us their system is the bad. Your system, their system is better, but our system is bad. This is the same logic they keep bragging, they keep lecturing us. But how come the system they think represents the beacon of democracy, the beacon of freedom, cannot improve their people's life? Why they cannot fix a railway? And our system, they keep saying, is so bad, so oppressive, so authoritarian, actually improving 1.4 billion people's lives. Our life is getting better and better, and we see hope. We see what we can achieve in the future. We have much more confidence, and yet they are somehow declining. So I think that's the West's biggest manipulation. And they are not just doing to Chinese. They are doing this to every part of the world, especially developing nations. They are lecturing Africa. They're lecturing Latin America. They are lecturing people in the Middle East what's best for them. They throw their system on them and never really like, let's see what happened in Arab states. What happened in Africa? What happened in Latin America that the West has been involved for such a long time? They didn't improve the life of those people. And when the people finally stand up against their narrative, and they try to paint you as brainwashed, you're just being manipulated by your government. So I think this is very.
I just want to say it is racist. It's insulting. I want people to go online and I want them to seek out videos of people, no commentary, just driving or walking through anywhere in China, and look at what the Chinese people have built and ask yourself why someone in China would not be proud of what their nation has achieved. Because as an outsider, I'm amazed, I'm impressed, and I'm inspired by what China has achieved. I can see the impact China has had on this region where I live, Southeast Asia, the positive impact. And just as you were saying, Africa, the Middle East, all the US and Europe have brought to these regions of the planet is death and destruction. They've literally destroyed entire countries, killed millions of people, tens of millions of people displaced out of their homes, their lives forever destroyed. And then China setting the example in Asia and the engine of progress in Asia that everyone else is working together with willingly. Why wouldn't they? Why wouldn't they want to follow this example and build rather than be divided and destroyed? It's just common sense. But that's why they put labels on you, on your social media. Well, not anymore on Twitter, but they had a label to try to discourage people from listening to you. And I think it is so insulting to say that you just work for state media, so you're just saying whatever they tell you to say. people, please just look at what's going on in China. It's not hard to believe that people like Li Jingjing would be proud of what our country has achieved. And I mean, this is why I wanted to talk to you and hear about your story, about how things have changed, even in just such a short time. And I could just only tell people so many times myself what I saw in 2007 and where China is right now, just that short amount of time, how impressive everything is. So it is so important that this work is done, no matter how difficult they make it. The more difficult they make it, the better the job is that you're doing. Just so you know, the more pressure they put on you, it's because you're doing an effective job, and they fear ordinary people seeing this information and being persuaded by it.
Can I add something? Because I think
sure.
Because Western media, they try to discourage people from watching my content or trying to discredit me, is calling me is saying like because I work for a state media, or so she cannot be trusted. I mean, that's also very different understanding, maybe a cultural differences between China or East or the West, because here people trust the state media. People in China or in the East and in the West have completely different understanding about state media. Here in China, people trust the state media because that's the official information. That means it's correct, and it's not some random individuals may create a media and spread lies or trying to exploit a certain individuals' sufferings or create some chaos. So here, people trust state media because here people trust authorities. I also noticed this the difference, because you see in the news that say in the United States, people don't trust anything from the government. People don't trust the police. People don't trust the military. And why the police are killing civilians? This is so shocking to all of us. Like, why police is pointing their guns at civilians? So here is very different. People here trust the government. People trust authorities. When we see policemen, we feel safe. We don't need to worry about anything. When we see soldiers, the PLA, we have so much appreciation and respect. And that's not just like because we were brainwashed to do that. You saw it from the multiple events, the history. For example, during major natural crisis, it's always the soldiers, the PLA, People's Liberation Army, all the soldiers sacrificing themselves, saving civilians. They're the one running in the front line, doing the most challenging, difficult jobs in multiple earthquakes, in floods, saving civilians. So that's why we trust soldiers, PLA. And most people cannot tolerate people talking bad about soldiers just because they have such a good image. They are doing so well. They are really serving the people. The policemen as well. Why I see? Because some Western people, when they come here, when they go to some busy, crowded area, when they see policemen, they're like, "Why policemen are here?" They like feel scared. I was like, "Why? Why are you scared? Are you up to something?" Because we were never afraid of policemen. When I see a policeman, police car, I'm like, "Oh, okay, I know I'm safe. Someone's here to protect us." Especially in crowded places, you don't know, maybe there are thieves or maybe people will be stepping on each other, but there's someone, the policemen are here to make sure nothing bad will happen. So here, what I'm trying to say here is people have a completely different attitude towards authorities. Either you're police, your government, your soldiers, your state media, we have so much trust in authorities. And the Western people think putting a state media label on us will discredit us, also hilarious, because that comes from some deep-rooted issues in their countries.
In the West.
They have issues. They have trust issues with their governments. They have trust issues with their police, with their authorities. So they think everything authority is bad. I mean, that's your
Yes.
problem. That's your
Yes.
problem. You think everybody that same logic applies to everywhere. But I'm sure if you go to many Asian countries, it's the same like China. I
Yes.
think in general, like Asian
Yes.
countries, especially East Asian countries, Southeast Asian countries, people trust authorities, right? It's different mindset. So the West still looking at us, looking at the world through their lenses. They think that problem exists in their country, so all the authorities cannot be trusted. Come on, our authorities don't lie like your governments,
Yes.
spending taxpayers' money into wars, let your infrastructures break, collapse. They don't like why do we trust our government? We can see through our life experiences, our life has been changing, got better and better. People have complaints and it got solved, so all problems got solved. It's getting better and better, so why don't we? Of course we trust it, of course. And what I see the big problem in the United States is they keep changing the presidents, keep changing the party. They argue so much. You can curse everybody in the public, but you get nothing solved. So what's the point of complaining? It
Yes.
cannot bring any changes to a real life. So I mean, that's the I think sometimes when people come here, they also trying to be understanding, because here in the East, people have completely different lifestyle, mindset, ideologies. Just because we're different from the Western ideologies doesn't mean it's bad. It's just different. We have Deng Xiaoping, our previous leader, said doesn't matter whether it's a black cat or a white cat, as long as catches mouth. So it's the same. So it doesn't matter which form of democracy or which government style you're adopted, as long as it's making people's lives better. That's the fundamental purpose of a government, right? Now it's working here. So that's what I'm just trying to show people the side of stories that Western media never showed them. And people can choose to believe me or not. If they think I'm a propagandist, they see my content, they think it's not convincing enough, fine. I'm not trying to convince you. I'm just showing you the voices from China, from Latin America, from Africa, the people's stories. I'm trying to show all the voices and stories being neglected by Western media. I mean, if you want to understand a culture, a country, a group of people, you have to talk to them. You have to hear their perspectives from them, not some still white correspondent. I know it's not correct, but if that was
it's absolutely true. When we're told something about China or Africa, it's not Chinese people explaining it, or if it is, it's someone that the NED in Washington is funding. It's usually some white guy or some white lady explaining it to Westerners about how bad China is. The thing that's so interesting is that you're explaining the Chinese military and how they're helping people. They're helping Chinese people inside China. What a novel idea. An army actually defending the country that it's from, instead of being all over the world, anywhere except in the country that they're supposed to be defending. It's such a novel idea. And again, it should be common sense. When you explain this, I know there's still going to be people that say, well, she's state media, and she's going to say that I was told the Chinese army is horrible. Where has the Chinese military invaded in the 21st century? Where have they invaded versus the United States, which is right now in multiple different countries, and their bases are spread all around the globe. And if Angelo was here, my co-host Angelo Giuliano, if he was here, he would bring up the fact that China's government delivers for the people. It delivers for the people, and that's why people support it. That's why people respect it. That's why people invest their time and their energy in it. And again, this is such a novel idea for people in the West, because the governments, like you say, it's mostly projection when they're saying stuff about China. It's stuff that it's so convincing because that's how they feel about their own country. That's actually a very funny point that you bring up, because it's like the truth is just out on the table, out in the open, but they're using projection to distract away from
exactly
from
because sometimes when the things they accuse China of doing, when I read the story, I was like, wow, where did you get the imagination? Where did you? Because
They're doing it.
I've never heard about this such a thing. Like, for example, forced labor picking cotton and the sterilization of women. I was like, where did you? Because if that really happened here, all of us will know. I mean, the social media and the technology is so well developed here. If anything bad will explode exponentially, we will know. At least we will hear something about it. But like none of the stories they reported, like it's shocking to everybody. Where did you get the idea to write such a fiction? And then you read the history of the United States or the West. Oh, okay, so that's projection.
Genocide, slavery, prison
Exactly.
labor, literally everything that they're accusing China of.
Yeah, exactly. You will find everything they accuse China of doing in their history. They are doing that to other parts of the world. So
And they know that it'll resonate with Westerners. Oh, picking cotton, that was so horrible when we used to do that. Now China's doing it. No, actually, China's not doing it. We're just making this story up and projecting it from what we have done. We're projecting it onto China to demonize them.
Can I also just add on something? Sorry, I just
Sure, no, sure.
Things. Since you mentioned the military, because I think most people don't realize how strong the manipulation skill, the propaganda skill, media has, especially the Western media. Because I think most people were taught they are the most balanced media. They have a free speech. They trust everything media says. The thing is, if you analyze each article, you will notice the different choice of words to describe something. Just take the recent event at the South China Sea or Taiwan Strait as example. If you go to AP, CBS, all those news reports keep saying China's fighter jet intercept U.S. Fighter jet comes close, comes near U.S. warship or something. Exactly.
Just to give people an idea of how far a U.S. warplane or a U.S. warship has to travel to, and they're like less than 100 miles off of China's coast. By the way, imagine if it was the other way around, and this often and in this context. My goodness. And not even talking about the U.S. military bases in the region. Okay, just so people understand.
So it's amazing when I see the rhetoric, the way they write their headlines: Chinese warship, Chinese fighter jet come close, come near U.S. fighter jets. While in fact, they are the one travel 8,300 miles to our doorstep, to our waters, and then say, oh, you are so aggressive. Hey, you are so aggressive. And they are doing this in the past week as a PR stunt because of the Shangri-La dialogue took place in Singapore. Yes. Just as that took place, all the U.S. warship come here, and all the media play along with the U.S. military, hyping the China threat. Make the perfect environment for their defense ministers to do whatever they want at the Shangri-La dialogue. So they are so good at the PR stunt, the media manipulation. They will choose different words to describe the same thing, but happen in different countries. If there's a terrorist attacks happen in the United States or in France, they will say that's Islamic extremist terrorist attacks in those in France. But when it happened in China, it's just a knife attack. It's because of a racial conflicts. They don't even use the word terrorist attacks. They don't use the word terror. Knife attack was the downgraded event on so many levels just by the choice of words. So, I mean, their propaganda skill is very, very powerful. So I can understand why the majority of Western audiences believe China is evil, because you've been reading such reports for decades.
From cradle to grave. Exactly. If you're a Westerner, yes.
Also
Um,
for the okay.
no,
You
no.
show you my Twitter.
I just want to say, this is your Twitter, and you were talking about. I can't. It's somewhere on the timeline. People should follow you on Twitter, and
Thank you.
you were talking about how ridiculous this is for the U.S. to have their warships right off China's coast. And there were actually people replying saying, "No, no, it's China's a big bully, and the U.S. is there to protect everybody." I live in a country, Thailand, that is under constant pressure by the U.S. to get involved in the South China Sea issue. There's multiple overlaying disputes between not just with China but with each other. And Thailand's not even a claimant, but the U.S. every single year puts so much pressure on Thailand to say or do something. So when a country in the region actually does cave into this pressure and say something, it's not because they feel genuinely threatened or they think this is a big crisis. It's a normal maritime dispute. The U.S. is coming in to, and so, but in the comments, the replies to your tweets, it might even be this one right here. We're showing how ridiculous, and the U.S. government, by the way, officially recognizes Taiwan as part of China. So there is no Taiwan coast; it is China's coast, and there's still people in the replies saying, "No, this is China's a bully, and America has to go all the way on the other side of the planet to get involved." I mean, how likely is that? And since I got this open, I just want to show people your YouTube. This is your YouTube. And these are all of your interviews and also your travel videos. And I was going through some of the older ones from a year or two ago, and very good. And again, what you capture is the pride that Chinese people have in what they've accomplished. And when you see it, when you investigate and look for it yourself without the West poisoning your mind against it, you will understand why. But I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I just, that tweet, I mean, I remember seeing that, and I tried to refrain from replying to people, but I couldn't resist. I just had to tell these people, the U.S. is pressuring countries here to complain about China. They don't care. The biggest trade partner is China. Their infrastructure partner is China. Their biggest investor, source of tourism, everything is China. This is a small dispute. This is not an actual conflict. It's the U.S. inserting itself and trying to create a conflict out of it.
Yeah. What was I trying to say? I think it's about the word game of the media, because
Yes.
you just showed the picture. I think that's also a good example, because we all know, anyone who knows the politics or international relations, they know that United States and every country that has a diplomatic relationship with China recognize Taiwan as part of China. It's written in the documents. Yes, like Brian is showing.
Right. State Department, state.gov. We do not support Taiwan independence. Right there in black and white for everyone to see. That's the U.S. State Department.
Yeah. That's the foundation of having a diplomatic relations with China. So if your country has a diplomatic relations with China, it recognizes Taiwan as part of China. But on the official level, on government level, they do that. But all the media is doing another thing, because they allow media to play with the words, because they keep saying China and Taiwan, China, Taiwan, like they are two different things. They are trying to create two Chinas in their narratives, in their coverage. International organizations, institutions describe Taiwan as either China's Taiwan region or Chinese Taipei. That's the official word international organizations use, because international organizations like the United Nations, international organizations, United States, World Peace. It is an international organization, right? So United Nations, all those international organizations use either Chinese Taiwan region or Chinese Taipei to describe Taiwan. They will never write China and Taiwan separately, because you are comparing a province of China with a country. That's not right. But the Western media keep using the two words, so they are putting this idea in public people's like minds, to teach them there are two things, there are two things, there are two different things. So I think a lot of people got to believe, oh no, they're different. So when the first time they realize, oh, they're the same, when they hear China say Taiwan is part of China, they feel ridiculous because they have been reading the reports from Western media for decades. So the government is saying one thing, their media is doing another thing, is brainwashing people into believing something else. Our friend Zhong Xiangyu, who's from Taiwan, he said a similar thing. When he was younger, Taiwan people or Taiwanese has always been a regional identity. Until one day, he suddenly realized there's a complete change of curriculum in schools from a top-down level, or from top-down scale. Suddenly, the government wants to change their curriculum. Don't teach them history anymore. And even in their textbook, they are trying to teach history, like China's history and Taiwan's history separately, which is ridiculous because they cannot, without the Chinese history, they cannot learn the full history about themselves. So I mean, I'm just bring this background to the people just to say, because a lot of people are brainwashed, are literally brainwashed to believing something that contradict to the history or contradict to their government's documents. And what happened between Chinese mainland and Taiwan is the legacy of our civil war, because after the Chinese people's the CPC took power, the Kuomintang fled to Taiwan, and the then leader of Kuomintang, Chiang Kai-shek, trying to claim his party, which located in Taiwan, to be the official representation of China. But of course, he lost. So what happened between Chinese mainland and Taiwan is our civil war and should be resolved by ourselves. We have differences, but both parties believe there's only one China.
Which it even says this on you're explaining the Chinese perspective, and that's even what the State Department officially says. But then what the U.S. government does, I mean, you're talking about the media lying to people, and I've talked to Americans that honestly believe Taiwan is an actual country. It is not even the sort of separatist forces on the island province don't consider it as an independent country, but there's Americans that think that. But it's even on the State Department website, they say this is an internal issue, needs to be resolved by Chinese people on both sides of the strait. Just as you're saying. I mean, and this is what I mean is so outrageous, because the lie is so ridiculous. They admit that this is what the situation is, but then every day, oh, China's bullying Taiwan. We have to stick up for Taiwan. Taiwan should declare independence. I mean, these are things that we hear people even in Congress talking about. Flying to Taiwan. Could you imagine if Chinese, some high-level Chinese government official flew to some place in America?
Flying to California.
Without asking for permission.
Hey. Yeah.
Yes.
Hey, we support your independence, and let's see how the politicians in the United States will react. They fly all the way to our borders, saying, well, we are doing the free navigation. Just imagine if Chinese warships are like around Cuba or around Mexico, how would they feel? Well, America will not tolerate that, right?
No, not at all. It's unbelievable, but again, it all comes back to this is why we have to keep working, no matter how hard they try to make it, for this information to get out. It's so important, because I think people can understand I really do. I think people have to see China to understand the scale of what's happening there. It's just on such a massive scale, and it is changing the world and people. I think Shang Yu is actually in the chat. Welcome, Shang Yu.
Really?
Yes. So
shout out to Shang Yu.
Yes. He was just on, because you had us both on, and I had meant for months to get both of you onto my channel, and just it's you understand, it gets so busy, and time just flies by, and there's just so many things that pop up. But Yeah. Is there anything else? Because I'm more than happy to listen to any more points you want to make, because you've made a lot of really great points, and I hope people that are tuning in or watching this later are learning a lot, because I know even I'm learning a lot. And
Thank you.
I've been on your show before, and I've watched a lot of your videos, but it's still, like you say, people have to talk to. I always tell people, get a Chinese friend, and not some Chinese friend who's ashamed of China and wants to be Western. Find a Chinese person that's proud to be Chinese and get to know them. Make a friend out of them and learn from their point of view, and it will change your perspective.
So, and also I recommend, if you can learn different languages, learn Chinese or whatever the languages you of the country that you want to go, because only talking to English speaking people also will tunnel you into like a bubble. Because for example, all the English speaking people in China, they are probably lived and studied in other countries. They got a good education, so you can describe them as an elite group. I don't like the word elite, but I mean they share a similar background either in terms of lifestyle or education. So you may find some of them are like-minded. Maybe some of them really appreciate the Western style of lifestyle, democracy. They really appreciate Europe, America. It could be that, but if you are able to speak Chinese, you will be tunneled into a different group of the people are very local. They come from very different life backgrounds. They think very differently from us. We have 1.4 billion people. We don't all think the same. We have very different opinions. Some are good, some are bad. I think if you are able to come here to explore by yourself, and also if you are able to speak different languages, you will get the chance to experience different perspectives to understand more people. So I mean, so that's one. And also maybe do a little bit commercial to just for myself, because I plan to travel to Xizang, Tibet, and Xinjiang many more times this year. And I also I plan to travel to different countries in Africa, Latin America, to show people what it's like there. So people can find my YouTube channel. My YouTube channel is my name, Li Jingjing. It has both my English name and my Chinese name. So, and you can also find me on my Twitter. Brian just showed my Twitter, also Li Jingjing.
Yes.
It used to have a China State affiliated media label.
Yes. Well, you're enjoying a little bit of freedom right now. For now, enjoy it while it lasts, because I have a funny feeling these labels are gonna be back.
And you can also find me on TikTok, Reddit, where else? Facebook, all those platforms. I realized before. I noticed before we started our live stream, one in the live chat comment saying I keep changing my names on different platforms
Yes.
since I've been exposed as working for China state media.
Oh my God, you work for Chinese state media? That's terrible. Why don't you work for the BBC? Right? I mean, because if you worked for the BBC, they wouldn't have a problem with it, even though that's state media, British state media.
Even with that, there's so many faults in that one description, because I've never changed my name on different platforms. My name on different platforms is either my full name or my program's name, like Talk It Out. I have a show called Talk It Out with Li Jingjing. So it's my Chinese name. Even the English way of writing it is my Chinese name. I don't have an English name. So it's always been this. Second, you can find my work info if you just do a Google search. There's a page of me on CGTN. You can find all my work on CGTN. And I've never hide my work information, because all my followers know who I work for, and they like my content. So yeah, see, you will see the page. So how can you expose me if all my information is open to the public? I find that
I
so
mean, you're on
hilarious.
TV. You're on TV. You're
Yeah,
on public TV around the world. People can see you. So
yeah. So
again,
the
it's
word,
just
yeah,
because you're Chinese and you're not allowed to have an opinion. You're not allowed to be proud of your country. I mean, this is what a lot of people believe. They cannot allow space for this uh, outside of Western. I would say exceptionalism or even supremacy. They don't allow for it. They just assume that everyone else around the world is miserable and wants to be like the West.
yeah.
They can't imagine. And like I said, go to China and you will understand why they don't want to be like the West. They're quite happy with how things are going there
Yeah.
at the
I really
moment.
welcome everybody. If you have any chance to come to travel to China, go to different cities, because China is so vast, and each province is different, and we have different ethnic groups, different cultures. So if you have chances to come here multiple times, you go to different provinces to fully experience different cultures, to see it for yourselves, talk to Chinese people. And the same if you go to Latin America and Africa, all the developing nations, you go there, you talk to local people, you see their lifestyle, see their culture without the Western lenses. So because most of the media, international media, when they talk about those regions, it's always very condescending. It's always, oh,
Yes.
those regions are so poor, underdeveloped, because they are lazy, because they are corrupt. They never mention they are the one exploited. They took their all their resources. They took their human resources. They are still controlling these regions, coercing those countries to follow the Western democracy or Western instructions, and never improve these regions. So it is because of the exploitation that's still been going on that left those regions underdeveloped. And now those regions, people in those regions are seeking independence. They are seeking ways to develop for themselves. They have always been seeking independence and development, their own way of development. But Western countries don't allow that had to happen. Whenever there's some leaders gonna develop their countries, they will be overthrown, they will be murdered, um, and the next one will be the US puppet to follow their orders, and then that country will never be developed. So now I interviewed many people from those continents, from different regions, and it's if you talk to them, you would see a different world from the Western world, because they have different opinions on so many major issues compared to the Western audiences. And I can assure you, they are all looking for their own way of development. They want to have the independence, they want to have the choice to decide for themselves. So I know Western media, they slander and also so many hit pieces attacking China-Africa relations, BRI projects. But no matter who I talked to, who I interviewed, either sometimes even people from different parties, they may don't like each other, but they like the cooperation with China because they chose that. China never forced that on them. They chose that because they see there are benefits. They can both win-win cooperation. We can do trade freely, and it's bringing infrastructure like hospitals, like roads, railways, schools to our country, which will boost the productivity and the living standards of the local people. That's why they are happy. It's not being forced by China. Western media, Western politicians tend to say China coerced those regions to follow the orders, but no, it's very racist that you think those people cannot decide for themselves. It's always them being coerced, being manipulated by some power. No, those people are choosing the thing themselves. So I think it's important for people to see China or other parts of the world, the whole global south, through the local people there. hear what local people think, talk to different people, don't feel so righteous and wanting to bring justice to those regions.
And just think about it. Why wouldn't someone pick to work with China and get railroads and hospitals and schools and electricity, or just because the West has no way of competing with this. They're unable to offer similar things. The only thing they can do is invest their money in media to poison the people against China, which is what's happening here in Southeast Asia, here in Thailand, actually, unfortunately. That's what they can do. They have a huge military that they can spread out across the globe and destroy things. That's what they can do. That is when they talk about, oh, we got a new plan. How many plans has the U.S. rolled out to compete with the Belt and Road
Where's
Initiative?
the Build Back Better World project that they proposed?
Do you remember Blue Dot? Do you remember there was a Blue Dot before Build Back Better? I mean, they have a new one every other year, and they evaporate, and all that's left is this media campaign to poison people against China and the military, and they're destroying everything. It's horrible. It's horrible.
It's a shame because I think what I'm showing, like the reason I'm showing the poverty alleviation stories in China and how those projects are benefiting different parts of the world, it's not about talking good about China. The thing, because there's some very valuable knowledge of how to improve people's lives, how to eradicate absolute poverty. This knowledge, this experience can be applied in different parts of the world. And they can actually make the entire world much better. And it can help the people in the United States as well. I'm sure the average working class in the United States are also struggling with the infrastructures and many things. So if we can use this knowledge and adopt it in different parts of the world, in your own countries, we can make everybody's life much better. No one will be exploited. But it's a shame that this crazy politicians, military industrial complex are spending all billions of US dollars on wars, on talking bad about other countries, on destroying other countries, rather than spending the money improving the basic infrastructure and people's lives back home, which will cost much less money, I think.
Yes, actually, and you started by talking about education and opening up opportunities for people in China. That is exactly what the West needs. Unfortunately, I would say the mind disease of Western style democracy, where people think they can vote their problems away. You cannot. You need education. You need hard work. You need to build. That's what China has been doing for decades now. And you can see the results, tangible results, versus the West, which is going the opposite way. They had at one point been doing this. They no longer do this. They're not even capable of doing this right now. At the moment, they need to go back to doing that. And that's my hope. And that's what I repeat over and over again, that I want to see the West. I don't want to see the West destroyed or go down the toilet. I want to see them find a constructive role among the nations of the world rather than trying to dominate them. So we've been going for an hour and a half. I mean, if you want to, I think that it would be great to have you back on more often. Actually, that would be great. And I want people to check out your YouTube. There's so much variety on your YouTube channel, and also follow on Twitter. And then please, after the show, please send me the other links, and I will post them in the video description, as well as a pinned comment at the top of the comment section. After the live stream is done, there will be a comment section, and I'll make sure all of those other links are in there. Do you have any closing thoughts? Because the other thing we could talk about is Western style democracy versus that's is a whole show, actually.
Yeah, we can.
The way
China
maybe, is administered.
Yeah, we can do another episode, because there's a different topic and there's so much to talk about, because I'm sure a lot of people don't understand how the system in China works, and I can explain that. But it takes probably another 1 or 2 hours.
whole episode, yes. Yeah. So that would be great. So that's what we'll do. We will definitely have you back on, and as soon as you're able, and we will talk about the system, because that is something that I learned about, and then I just thought it makes so much more sense versus Western style democracy doesn't work. It is a system of control. It is not a system of actually running a country or self-determination. So it's something. It's a very important topic.
Mm-hmm.
So, any closing thoughts?
I think I hope people, if you are interested in knowing China, and if you are interested in hearing the stories from China and Africa and Latin America, the whole global South, and if you want to, if you cannot come to China yet, but if you want to watch travel vlogs, you can also come to my channel, because I will travel to Tibet and Xinjiang very soon. I'm sure I will post more vlogs on different topics, so you can see it for yourself through my lens first, and then you can come here by yourself to see it as well. So if you're interested in knowing, see travel logs in China and also hearing different perspectives, you can come to my platforms. I'm on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Reddit, TikTok. So, and thank you so much, Brian, for bringing me on. I enjoyed this conversation, and I really appreciate your work. I know you've done so much research, which is very difficult. It takes a lot of time, but thank you so much for doing the work and bringing this important perspectives to audiences on different countries. So, thank you so much, Brian.
Yes, and thank you for taking time out of your evening to join us. And I really do look forward to coming back on. And to everyone who tuned in, thank you so much. Like and share. Please, again, check out Li Jingjing's different platforms. It'll be, again, it's in the video description and a pinned comment at the top of the comment section. And until next time, bye for now.
Bye.